Seebacher Show.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are, whenever you are. I'm Kev Baker, and you're right, this is the Kev Baker Show, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, where silence is consent, and we give you protection from deception. And of course, you're tuned in live to www.tfrlive.com, and to anyone listening on any of the many kind of mediums that you can tune into TFR, an equal warm welcome. And you're not going to be disappointed that you have chosen to spend your time here tonight, because this is going to be a real highlight for the week. You know how I'm one of these guys that likes to go with gut feelings? Well, this show tonight, this was all born out of just that. I seen a random post on Facebook, and even that in itself is quite random, because these days I very, very rarely go through all of the kind of comments, all of the posts that are there. But one post really stood out amongst many. And my gut told me, follow this one up, Kev, that there's something to this. And that's how we are here tonight. But before we get more into that, I'll leave you waiting in deep anticipation. Let me just give a big, huge shout out to my favourite football team. Yes, my soccer team over here, Glasgow Celtic, who had an absolutely amazing result tonight, which has put me in an extra special good mood. Not that I needed it, because like I say, I've been looking forward to this show all day. Now, I've got Jimmy Jeans with me here, and I'll briefly go to Jimmy. Jimmy, how you doing, man? And like I was saying to you before the show, I've got a funny feeling this is going to be even better than what I'm expecting. There's a real good energy in the house tonight. But how you doing, man? You looking forward to this one?
I was just in the green room moments ago, and I'm going to tell you right now, my empathic sense tells me I can feel the energy of this show. And I'm just going to be here, but I'm just going to sit back. And I really want to hear what our fantastic guest has to say tonight.
Absolutely. And, you've been an empath. And with our guest that is coming on in just a moment as well, that really I think we're going to have a really uplifting, positive experience tonight. I truly, truly do. And I think myself, yourself, and all of the thousands of people around the world are going to be all the better for the next 2 hours of radio. So who is it that's coming on tonight? Well, we've got a first-time guest, and her name is Jolene JoJo Seebacher, and she's a counsellor and teacher specialising in helping targeted individuals, experiencers including abductees and love bite victims, MiLabs, SRA victims, and program project survivors, as well as the newly awakened. And you know how I love to think that we've always got new listeners to the show. Now, JoJo speaks publicly worldwide and is herself personally a survivor with an incredible life story. Now, for the past 14 years, she's been running services called Session Work, teaching something called the 5 Foundations and PSI-Self Defense. That's PSI, something myself and Jimmy have talked about very, very recently. And she also talks about protection techniques to classifications of individuals, ultimately promoting self-healing and teaching against something she calls the new cage agendas. I absolutely love that. Now, there's a lot more to JoJo's bio. However, we will backfill all of that as the show goes on, because I want to waste no more time. I'm buzzing. Jimmy's buzzing. I see all of you are buzzing in the chat room. So, JoJo, at long, long last, it's been a long time in the making. Welcome to the Kev Baker Show, sister.
Wow, what a beautiful introduction. I'm so honored. I feel your energy. I feel Jimmy Jeans. I feel everybody in the listening audience. I'm covered in goosebumps, which is a real great thing I've had since a kid. And it's just lovely, lovely, lovely to meet you and be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Well, like I shared with you off air, I was very honest with you. I really didn't know too much about you, JoJo. I had you on Facebook, but that's no way to get to know somebody and what they're all about. And then because I take every show one day at a time, today, as I started to dive down the rabbit hole and look at some of the information that you kind of convey to people you speak to, the more and more I looked, the more and more positive I was about tonight. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself before we drill into more of these topics more specifically. So how did you get to where you are today, Jojo?
It's quite a tremendous story, and one I've tried to write in several books. The books have been stolen, and I tell my story on the Leak Project, actually, a couple of years ago. I was born with supernatural abilities, enhanced by a pharmaceutical company my father was working for. My lineage, my ancestry goes back into the World War II Project Paperclip people over in Austria with the MK Ultra technology and experimentation. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse and trauma. I was working in the Atticus Institute on Montauk with the girls program, very similar to Stranger Things, like the TV show on Netflix, not even knowing there were a boys program until several years ago. I just have kind of been indoctrinated throughout my life, being used for these abilities, from my psychic kinesis stuff, my psychic seeing, because I'm quite a different psychic than normal psychics. I can hear thoughts and hear and feel feelings, and I can hear this voice that I now call the soul. I used to call it the God voice. Some of my missions took me into the Gulf War and the Desert War with a handler over in Brussels at the embassy. And then I kind of had I had a daughter who made me a MySpace account. And I mean, growing up like this, I just thought I thought it was like the only person in the world like this. I knew there were other people that I had trauma with in these programs, and I've seen a lot of death and a lot of misuse of human beings. But I really, if it wasn't for MySpace, my little 10 or 11-year-old daughter at the time made me this account, and I became a very renowned soul psychic. I used to call myself a psychic soul reader, and it just became word of mouth from there. I would teach these healings, these self-healing ways. I was bucking the new age. I would try it. I would buy it and try it, and then figure out why it wasn't working and teach against it. So I've always worked with energy because I've always seen energy, whether it was anything like the I see dead people, spirits, demonic energy, grids, you name it, I saw it. I could move energy. It was just all natural to me, and I was misused for this. So my life is a storybook. It's like Jason Bourne without all the running. And
wow, no way. I was actually going to lead into my next kind of question by saying it's almost like we're hearing here about a female version of the Bourne identity. So this is getting really freaky already. I can tell this is going to be a good show.
Energies. We got energy going and flowing. That's what, and I love to teach energy alchemy.
And do you know what's strange as well, Jojo? Just recently, thanks to Jimmy Jeans, we kind of dived down the psychotronics rabbit hole. And psychotronics takes care of things like telekinesis and most of the kind of subjects that you spoke about there. And I'm so glad that you managed to kind of break free of what can only be described as a nightmare upbringing. And without getting too deep into what your childhood, what they put you through, what was it they were telling you that they were basically training you to be in the future? Or did they tell you what they wanted you to be in the future?
No, not really. It wasn't anything like that. It was a misuse of a child and an adult relationship. It was a manipulated relationship. It was, I was praised and put down and then praised. I never really understood a lot of it, but I had a lot of defense in me already, and I bucked a lot. I mean, I fought a lot, and how do you answer something like that? I didn't know I didn't know what I was actually really doing until I was working with the handler in Brussels with the remote viewing stuff.
Wow. So tell us more about what you were doing in Brussels with this remote viewing then, because this sounds quite interesting as well. You mentioned Iraq, stuff like that.
Yeah, the Gulf and the Desert War predominantly. I have to be really, really careful about.
Yeah, I understand that. If I go anywhere at all that you don't want to go, please, please, please just tell me. I've got no problem with that whatsoever, because in the end of the day, your safety is paramount to me. And this show is all about you tonight. So you can take us wherever you want to go. Where would you like to start, Jojo?
Well, I have to tell you, when you were saying, my life was really like a nightmare, it was like a living hell all the way up until, I've had some really successful years, of course, and good years in between, but always a handler or something trauma-based in my life, which made me chase self-healing through it all and come up with these things I call solutions, SOUL, solutions. So this past year, Kevin, I don't know if you've read any of my blogs or articles online, but I had a little over a year and almost a half of something I call healing through the darkness. I had 3 near-death experiences and kind of waved the white flag to these alphabetical groups that I would not speak in detail about a lot of things. So I'm trying to just concentrate on the energy alchemy stuff, the self-healing, the foundations. I can talk a little bit of here and there, but it's so hard because it's.
No, I appreciate that.
I want my life. I love my life.
I've had guests on before that have been part of the bloodlines, for lack of a better term. And one thing they've shared with me is the fact that we often talk about handlers and stuff like that. And most people think about physical handlers. And I'm going to ask you, because the people I've spoke to in the past have all mentioned, and you yourself said you were born with almost supernatural abilities. Because these people have told me that, yes, there are definitely physical handlers, but when you're really in the middle of it, there's also, almost supernatural, spiritual handlers as well. Is that something that you can kind of attest to?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I just did a show on the Snail Show with Gary Warmerdam on Sunday, and we were talking about the invisible being more reality than the 3D. So, when you're deprogramming, you not only have these physical human beings as your handlers, whether they're husbands or people surrounding you, even parents, family members, friends. You also have these sort of in psychic claw type things. And we can get really detailed with anything from AI, artificial intelligence, to the bonds that they make in the satanic ritual with black magic. They could psychically bond you and handle you. They can brain map you and handle you with the technology, they could disassociate you. You could become dissociated and have several identities. So, this is a very layered thing. And I don't want to call myself an expert in it, because I'm always learning something new about each type of program or project or, experiencer or whatever you want to classify these types of people. I don't even want to even say cool thing is, through all the hell I've lived, this literal hell, I've kind of been a part of each part of these types of categories of people. So that's why I help these people now. If I could break programming, if I could deprogram, if I could heal and find new solutions, that's what I want to teach other trauma-based, mind-controlled individuals, whether they're experiencers, MiLabs, SRA victims, pedophile victims, newly awakened, anybody. I have experience in all of this, and I don't want to portray myself as some perfect human being, because we're constantly healing something. So I look for the detailed layers of things. And
I know that you encourage people to contact you through social media, stuff like that, and we'll be able to give people details of that as the show goes on. But Jimmy, I know you would like to jump in here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is super interesting conversation, and I like to point out that what JoJo's been through is something that is on the extreme level of trauma-based mind control. But I want to point out how even someone who hasn't been exposed to such the extreme, that every single day through pop culture and through feedback on these feedback loops that are programmed into the mind map that JoJo is talking about when you click on and log into Facebook. And each time that you're beaten over the head with something that's traumatizing, you know, you see this awful picture of these animals that have been abused, and you find out that you're, you know, because you've like Trump, you're a racist or whatever it is that will upset you. I mean, they can literally, I mean, it's literally, you know, we've talked about this before, JoJo. It's like Pavlov's dog experiment, only extrapolated with AI and you know, history mapping of every single thing someone's ever looked at on the internet. And so what you're offering as far as helping people get through that isn't just for people on the extreme, but also people that just I mean, just based on some of the trauma that you see on television every day, I mean, it's clearly obvious to me that the population has been forced into creating this alter identity, this identity where they can go inside and try to protect themselves, just like someone who's been through a trauma-based mind control program.
Jimmy, I was just going to say, like when you were talking about, you know, even normal people, I was taking notes and I was writing, you know, let me mention about the trauma we just see on TV. You know, you're putting on a television set and you literally are watching raw murder happen and violence. And I mean, it's graphic violence on TV now, right? It's really graphic. And even satanic magic is happening on TV, some of these programs. So people are being traumatized and desensitized. And I always say, you know, these are attachments coming on to people. These are negative attachments being entered, you know, in a psi form, an energy form, a psychic form into the human being, not only into their subconscious, their mind, for the mind control and the desensitization of a human compassion element, but also a psychic connection. Maybe the black magic connection is in them. A demon is sent through them through some of these murderous TV shows. What does somebody do with that? They don't know. They don't know why they're in a bad mood that next 2 days or road raging. I want to teach people these are attachments. You know, when you get on and off Facebook, YouTube, TV, clean your energy and magnetics. They don't know these foundations. If you're going to go dive down the rabbit hole, you better have some foundations to pull your butt out, you know, and that's what I want to teach folks.
And it's so necessary too, because we talk about this time and time again, how most of the information that, you know, we come in contact with on a daily basis is not good. I mean, every single thing we see, and not only that, but let's face facts. When we go searching for something, we get fed exactly what we're looking for. And if we happen to be looking for the stuff that's going wrong in the world, we tend to find what we're looking for, don't we, Kev?
Absolutely. And you know what ties in with this, myself and Jimmy often point to things like Harry Potter. And I see in the chat room they're talking about the new Sabrina, the Teenage Witch series that's out right now. And myself and Anne, my partner, we were doing our shopping today just in the grocery store. And I mean, it's not somewhere you would go for your Christmas presents, really, namely per se for like the main presents. However, they've got a little selection there, Jojo. And it's magic tricks and stuff like this. And we can see now how this is becoming like the norm. And you also mentioned the TV show Stranger Things. And I'm glad you brought that up, because my byline or my tagline is that, you know, fact is stranger than fiction. And people that may watch Stranger Things, they'll enjoy it on an entertainment level. But there's another level to that where it's a far more real to people, especially like yourself, who have lived this kind of childhood, than maybe a lot of people appreciate, Jojo.
I felt that show as a mockery of my life at the pharmaceutical company I was with. It's no secret. I mean, it's Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. They turned into Brookhaven. And Montauk,
Wow.
Montauk had two elements on it. It had Camp Hero with the boys project, Montauk Boys, and it had a girls program called what I called the Plum Island Girls. I mean, my auntie had a home up there on Montauk.
It's funny you mention this, right? Because the original concept for Stranger Things, it turned out to be just a random kind of department of energy base that it was kind of based around. However, it was specifically, when it was originally written, about Montauk.
Yes, yes, but portrayed by the boys. The girls' side is never spoken about. I know only one survivor other than myself, and I don't have permission to give her name. She speaks on the circuit, but I've never spoken. I just recently only found out she was a survivor from the Plum Island Montauk. So the Stranger Things show was very white and sterile in a sterile environment, Hawking's lab. Let me tell you, Camp Hero was not white and sterile and laboratory. It was, dark and dank and, damp and rocks and, dungeons and where the girls were used on Montauk in those chairs and with high-tech equipment and Egyptian deities and oversouls and all these ugly, ugly, torturous things to exude the that kind of chokes me up a little bit to talk about it. This chemical, this pheromone, this stuff from a child's fear, and then you extrapolate that with their psychic abilities. The child can bring a deity through a portal hole. It can put a soul in another body. It can do these crazy things with the technology. I mean, it just is really something so sci-fi. But I looked at it as a mockery of my life. I had a very, very difficult time watching it. I had several anxiety attacks through it. And I didn't even really watch the second season too much. Well, I did, but it wasn't as traumatizing as the first season.
Now, we'll get into more of the kind of technology and the AI as the show continues, but we've got a couple of minutes before the break, and you briefly mentioned technology before the show, and I sometimes wonder if the technology that our children are subjected to today, at a younger and younger age, it's almost as if they're being traumatized without going into the actual specific programs that people like you had to experience in the past, Jojo.
We can go a little bit further than that. I mean, the typical ultrasound on a pregnant woman penetrates the blood-brain barrier of the fetus, of the infant growing in the mother's womb. So that's not ultrasound is a technology the Navy uses as a weapon. I'm a 53-year-old woman, so I'm a little bit different than some of the super soldiers of today that are young, 20, 30-year-olds with more of a energy kind of thing. Mine is real human experimentation and human usage with human beings. So I lost track of the question. I'm so sorry, Kev.
No, it's just the fact that our children today, person like yourself was in these you were taken to locations, you were experimented on, but it's almost as if in our own homes now, this technology has been unleashed en masse.
Let me tell you, the cell phone that we use, since it became a cell phone, matches the hertz in your brain, matches the same frequency your brain resonates. So is that a coincidence or not? There's so many different...
we don't do coincidence on the show, Jojo. We don't do coincidence.
Patents written by our governments to prove this technology, to prove this brain technology, brain mapping, mind control technology through smart appliances, smart meters, smart TVs, smart phones. They match the same the hertz frequency of the human brain. So, even downloading apps, is there. These are all connections and what I call attachments. And most people don't even want to admit they've been brain mapped. But let me tell you, Kevin, Jimmy, everybody on this planet just one degree or another has been brain mapped and used in some type of experimentation, programming, or just human annihilation.
Okay, let me pause things there because we are coming up on the first break. And I think by now, 20 odd minutes into listening to JoJo, I think we can all appreciate that my gut was absolutely spot on. We'll be back after the break to learn more about JoJo's story and, more importantly, what she's doing to help people, uplift people, and bringing solutions to the table. Join us after these short messages. Don't go anywhere, people. You don't want...
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time. Times are changing. The circus of politics.
Chat room's liking it.
Okay, we are back. We are live. And the conversation is that good during the break. We almost missed our cue. But I'm Kev Baker. This is the Kev Baker Show. And tonight we are joined by our very, very special and brilliant guest, Jojo Seebacker. I have got Jimmy Jeans with me as well. Honestly, this, you know, when the conversation is so natural between people that you've never spoken to before, that there's something going on here and there's a good energy, there's a good feeling. I'm looking at the chat room and I think people are really, really kind of tuning into this. And I mean that in the best of ways. And they're almost resonating with your information, Jojo. And I know that you have taken to helping people and that have been in a similar situation to yourself. And out of all the people who come to you, is it the satanic ritual abuse? Is it the abductees? And is it this thing that you call love bites? I mean, what's the love bite thing all about?
The love bite is when you're with an individual, there's such a chemistry, you don't even understand the attraction. They may not even be somebody you're like your type, but the attraction and the chemistry is just so strong, and it can happen to men or women. It's a love bite, B-I-T-E or B-Y-T-E, and Eve Lorgen writes special books on it called The Dark Side of Cupid. It's like having a Draco inside a human being, and that human is very narcissistic or abusive, and they just have these bonds to you that'll rip you to shreds and spin your head, and that's...
Now, you mentioned the Dracos there. Now, would I be right in saying this is like a reptilian race?
It could be that. I mean, it could be an oversoul of a, it could, I mean, this is going to sound really crazy to some people.
Nothing's crazy here. Don't you worry about that, Jojo. Forget thoughts like that. You're in the right place, sister. We're all of similar mind, and there'll be none of this crazy talk. Just you speak your mind.
Well, it could also be an oversoul of it, like a demiurge, like a Loki type, a trickster, whatever you want to call these creatures. Some people even have theories that aliens are demons and demons are aliens, or aliens are the demiurge. I mean, the parasites of the archons, we're talking about those too. So these are just people that have been taken over by some other soul. I'm not the expert in that field. Eve Lorgen is someone who people should really go and read her books. I help the victim of the abuse part of it, the narcissistic part, how to get back your, voice, how to learn to make decisions again, how to break the connection. It's almost like detoxing off drugs. It's, I experienced it, so I find solutions. And,
So
sometimes
how
I think,
did you personally break out of that yourself, Jojo? I mean,
look,
you were brought up this way. You've had the whole kind of programs going on and everything else. What was it you were able to do to really realize what was going on and then empower yourself to the point where you could help others?
I'll tell you what, most of the programming was broken except for that narcissistic kind of emotionally abusive relationship that I kept finding myself getting into with my men relationships. And this past year, I tell a story called Healing Through the Darkness. I've told it on Truth Frequency Radio with Nikki Colombo. I spoke about it on the Snail Show on Sunday. This year of healing through the darkness, I put myself in such a purposeful place because I had been suffering insomnia over, numerous months. I just constant insomnia. And it just got so dark, I decided to, stop cleaning my energy and just really let the darkness take over me. And that's when I really saw all the layers that I had missed in my healing prior to these years. And I have been, dealing with an ex and a karmic situation with a home that we own together. Really finally standing in my power and realizing, oh my God, yeah, now I totally get it. Now I found those hidden layers. I mean, you got to listen to the story, folks. It would take a whole show with Kev and Jimmy just to explain the year of healing through the darkness. Things I thought that were healed, I kept finding the same type of abusive friends, or again, like this man I was with I've been with him for 20 years, and broke off 4 years ago. And then somehow through this insomnia thing, I kind of like just lost it. I just lost it in the darkness and really like went almost mad. I mean, I died 3 times, guys. You go mad with insomnia, hallucinations, insomnia, 3 near-death experiences, and it was really a confusing year for me. But I kept asking divinity, like, make all this hell finally end so I can live a normal life. So the more I asked for, I even wanted to like go back home. I just didn't even know I wanted to be on this earth anymore. It was so damn dark this last year. But I let the darkness take me. And I do not recommend this, folks. I happen to be an extraordinarily strong woman. And it broke me. It broke me, but it miraculously healed me. And I found these onion layers that really were so entwined energetically with this person.
Well, George, I have to ask, do you think, over the course of your childhood, stuff like that you were broken into the multiple personalities? Do you think you've uncovered all of them if you were?
I did this year. I found the cowering child, finally realizing why she was going to these guys, these long-term relationships that she's had, for love. It was almost like finally saying, oh my God, that's my mom. I'm like, why didn't I see that? I knew it was obvious. I healed over my mother and nothing shakes me about my mother. But I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it right in my love life. So yeah, it was a kind of like that, like an altered little girl, little toddler, begging for that to prove, hey, you're wrong. Hey, love me or whatever, I'm lovable, guy. I have to be real with your audience, I'm not going to be
No, that's brilliant. And I really appreciate that you're kind of wearing your soul on your sleeve tonight. I really do. And this thing, the soul, you talk about the soul a lot. I mean, I talk about the soul a lot, but what really is the soul?
The soul is your life force. It's actually it's what makes you an infinite being. And it kind of sits between your sacral chakra and your solar plexus chakra. And then it makes like this figure 8 pattern up into your heart, and the heart makes it go up into the third eye. And then if it's running properly, it'll go back through your heart and make the figure 8 back down, below your belly button. But most people, that's what the type of psychic I am. I can hear your thoughts. I can feel and hear your heart's feelings. And then I can hear this God voice, what I used to call the God voice, your soul. And most people don't listen to their divinity. Their soul's divinity is so pure. When you get this pop of consciousness, that's your soul telling you, hey, man, you can do this, try that. And
when I got inspired to invite you on the show, because I talk about the gut feeling, would you say that ties in with like the kind of odd voice, the soul talking?
Oh, show. Yeah. In fact, actually, your tummy chakra, if you were to put it up to a piece of equipment that would resonate hertz, it would sound like the word no, no. So your gut will always say, hey, no, don't do that. But your soul is kind of like right in between your belly and
that's your child, isn't it? When you know you're doing something that's wrong and you get that feeling, no, you shouldn't be doing this, that no. Yeah. And sometimes you listen to it and sometimes you don't. And when you don't, you always end up in a situation where with hindsight, you look back and go, I should have listened to that, right?
Right, but it's a little bit different than your soul. Like some people will call it the higher self, your ruach, your spirit, your fetch, your life force, depending on, if you're studying occult or Gnosticism or Hermetics, whatever you want to call it. The soul, it like gives this pure directive in your third eye before it hits your brain. And then it hits your brain like a really quick thought. And your brain sometimes takes over. It might say, hey, you know what, pick up the phone and call this person. And you don't, you're like, okay, brain took over. If I call that person, no, they don't want to hear from me right now. Or, I'm not good enough for that job. I'm not going to call them. So your brain and your heart start arguing and you snuff out what your soul just told you to do.
Oh, wow. That's where I am, like near enough most days. There's a turmoil. There's a kind of torn between what my gut's telling me and what my head's telling me. And I know, Jimmy, you want to jump in at this point, man. And usually when we've got the first time guest on, I try and make it a one-on-one. But tonight's conversation and the energy that's flowing, dude, I have to kind of scrap that because there's something different going on here tonight. And I'm going with my gut, Jimmy.
Cool. Can I just interject real quick, you guys? There's like
absolutely.
There's a 7 or 8 minute video. It's the only video I have of myself on YouTube that I made myself and that I explained.
Good video. Very good video as well. I'm going to drop your channel in the chat room right now. So you talk about that and I'll drop that for all the listeners at tfrlive.com/chat.
So what it is, it's like an 8-minute video called the God Source Soul Self inside of us all. And it explains how this works inside of each human being. Your gut instinct is a little bit different. Your gut will always tell you no, but your divine soul, your soul, God source soul self, divine source soul self will always guide you right. It will always tell you what to do. It won't, it's a little bit different than your intuition. It's sort of the same, but different. If that makes sense, guys. And I got some really cool set lists on my channel. They got funny names to it. I try to be really cool and lighthearted and upbeat. And so there's some good healing stuff and stuff that I have in the books. Good stuff to go through. I have to kind of weed some stuff out of there. There's some old videos in there, I'm sure, but there's everything from Gnosticism to astrology to healing to, frequency videos, narcissistic abuse videos, all kinds of alien type, anything you want, guys. They're all on my set list.
Jojo, I'm hoping that this isn't going to be your only appearance on the show because I think that you're going to be able to come on from time to time, talk about all of the stuff you talked about there individually on specific shows. And people are going to be able to take things from all of these subjects that you can talk about. And Jimmy, I know you've got something you want to throw in here as well, right?
Yeah, well, I'm just vibrating over here from this conversation, being on the.
You're an empath yourself, man. I mean, you talk about this. You always know when there's something up with me, as does Nano Girl. She's emailed me out the blue sometimes saying, Kev, are you okay? And it's uncanny because sometimes when she does it, okay, most of the times when she does that, Jimmy, it's always been something on my mind. Some event has happened, and she knows. And I know you're like that as well, dude. And I know that Jojo, too, shares that.
I know. And so, I mean, what's going on here between the three of us here in the ether space, the energy that's flowing, I'm over here vibrating right now. I'm so energetic. But what I wanted to point something out in reference to what JoJo was saying earlier, and that is there's archetypes that are seductive to certain people for certain reasons. And for example, the narcissistic person, a person is attracted, say, to a narcissistic type or archetype of person because for whatever reason, they don't want to have, in other words, being treated good by somebody is not what the person seeks out in the narcissistic personality or archetype. And narcissistic archetypes, are seductive to certain people. Other people are seduced by a submissive type archetype, or but whatever it is, whatever lesson it is that we're supposed to learn. See, I know for me personally, for my relationship with family members, that I respond to certain stimuli, out in society based on my upbringing, my learning from my family members, female family members, male family members. And so, coming up with a fresh slate, but then I find myself attracted to certain qualities that I found represented love in my own family. Even though other people might not consider it loving the way the family reacts to each other or interacts. In other words, you may come over to somebody's house and they're yelling at each other, and that's their way of whatever expressing their emotions to each other, even though it's not very positive, but from the outside, that looks like something else than what it is between those two people. In other words, that relationship and the way they interact is representative of their love for each other. So anyway, the point is that, we all have these archetypes and we seek them out. And the quicker that we can, identify the archetype that's going to drag us down, JoJo, don't you think the faster we can sort of, it's like recognizing a pattern, as soon as you start to see a pattern.
Out of it, Jimmy, you can snap out of it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I want to teach folks. Now, all three of my long-term marriages were all different types of abusive relationships. And with my upbringing, you mentioned like the archetype of being submissive. Well, I kind of had that type of relationship where this person was trying to make me submissive, and I'm not I'm not a submissive person, and I bucked the whole way through this relationship. But I get to have the experience so I can teach others how I survived through it, how I'm thriving through it. And also, if this did not happen to me, I would not have gotten, it's two things I started adding to my 5 foundations that put it on steroids. And then I added like this, even though these two things are very similar, I added 2 more things that are almost identical to these foundations, and it kind of like supersized them on steroids. So I'm literally like, I'm going to be doing a show on Blog Talk Radio tomorrow on different types of abusive relationships, because nobody likes to be called a narcissist or a submissive or a codependent. But many people who have been brought up in abused families or abusive families, we don't know that that's not normal. I mean, we think that's normal. So we go, if somebody's nice to us, that's unusual. David Icke has a story. He was ridiculed his whole life and beaten down. I mean, that's like the story of my life, ridiculed and beaten down. And,
Jojo, unbeknown to you, I went to see Ike recently, and we've been talking about Ike a lot on the show again, and the synchronicities are just, I mean, I can't jump in with every synchronicity, but I'm just sitting here smiling because this is amazing stuff you're coming out with here.
This is like soulmate connection. We're soulmate friends, guys. This is soulmate stuff.
I think TFR came about because of a twin flame relationship.
Rock it out for them, Sherry and Chris.
Exactly.
Rock on, guys.
Exactly. And I think whatever they've inspired here, even the hosts and the listeners, we always talk about it, but I don't think we truly appreciate just how special it really is.
Yeah, well, a lot of these abusive relationships are twin flame relationships and soulmate karmic stuff involved. We have to realize we're living in a narcissistic society, a very detached society, and everybody's emotionally, stunted in how to talk and communicate. So, you might find your greatest love of your life in a twin flame, but it's such a horrible, mean, abusive relationship. So,
Why is that though? Because you see that all the time.
Well, you hear a lot about twin flames and soulmates, and if, it's abusive, it's not a real twin flame. I have to disagree with that, folks, because we're dealing with a society that is mentally constipated. They don't know mentally and more emotionally constipated. They're not taught how to be good adults, communicative. Children aren't taught to communicate with parents. Parents don't communicate with children. Adults don't communicate well with adults. So I'm an effective communicator.
Skills. I mean, our communication skills, Jojo, are going down all the time because a lot of communication is body language. It's our pitch and our tone when we're speaking face to face. And with technology, I mean, all of that has almost been wound back and dying away.
We've lost that connection, and there's so much foolery on there. You can have the most dangerous person on the opposite end of the computer. I mean, look at just what the child pedophiles do to kids over the internet. It's such a false identity. So how do you feel the energy through a internet, through a Facebook page or an Instagram post? Empaths certainly can to a degree, but I want to teach people what to look for in signs on the internet in people's talk, so they can even identify some of these perpetrators without knowing energy or things like that, if that makes sense.
What would you say to people listening tonight that can really relate to your story and the kind of stuff that you're talking about here, but maybe haven't spoke to anyone about it yet, Jojo?
Well, I'll tell you, it takes a lot of bravery and strength, but that is an asset of yours. And the more that you come and talk about it, you just have to be careful how you talk about it publicly. Find someone to talk to and be brave to get it out, because you deserve to have your story heard. You deserve to have validity. You deserve to have beauty and uplifting and support and love through it. And you deserve to know that there's hope and healing. It takes the strength in your heart's will to come forward. And so many of us, even targeted individuals, they lose their heart's strength and they're just so torn down, beaten down. But I want to tell you, if you've got that little ounce left, come out and speak it, man or girl. And come to me, come to any one of us. I'm sure you, Kevin, you, Jimmy, just talk to us. We're here. There's hope. You deserve to be,
I would say the first step is go to somebody like yourself, Jojo. And then if you want your story heard publicly, I mean, I'm certainly always here for people. And I don't go into the dirty details and I don't want to kind of make fun of things. And I'm here for people like Jojo and people that I've brought onto the show before to share their story in the hope that others can resonate with that and we can bring them some relief. But you mentioned the targeted individual there. And I used to be somebody that rubbished that, Jojo. And I'm kind of ashamed to admit that because I used to think people were just being paranoid. And then I started working with people like Dr. Eric Karlstrom and I started digging deeper into it. And aside from being well, this is real. I mean, this is actually a really serious, widespread global problem. Now, how do you approach the kind of targeted individual when they come to you? I mean, what kind of techniques can you tell them to adopt to bring them some relief from what they're suffering?
Well, I tell you, I've been trying to write a darn book for 3 years on every type of attack that any person could.
And there's so many. I mean, you've got the electronic, you've got the psychic attack, you've got the gang stalking. It's crazy.
Right. And again, I've experienced all of this myself through being tagged, as a young child and being followed and, cameraed and photographed and, whatever, phone taps, you name it. First of all, a client has to come to me and go through something called an assessment session. I have to really be with them for 4 or 5 hours asking about 90 different really intense questions to them to determine what category they fit in so I can guide them with a solution. Maybe it's a bath they need, or maybe I want to definitely teach the foundations for sure. I want to give them it could be anything from a dollar store to a bath to nutrition supplements. It could be, oh my God, there's just so many ways to teach a person, but everybody's so different. So nobody gets like the same prescription, so to speak. There's certain tones you can listen to stop the EMFs and ELFs, and there's certain products you can get to stop the pitch tones in your ears. There's even crystals you can tape near your ears to stop the pitch tones. It all depends on how this assessment session goes, because a lot of TIs, they all vary. Some are program kids that are targeted, throughout their life. Some are just targeted and there's no difference in how heavy duty it is, but some are targeted because they raised questions with authority or are just don't even understand why they're targeted or what's even happening to them. So when I do an assessment session, I've got to ask different questions, like even right down to, do you have blurry vision, bloody noses? Do you get rashes? I ask what their personal history is, their family history. I find out their ancestry, birthmarks. Oh God, I'm looking through like my 90 questions if they've ever had near-death experiences.
We are on the break, Jojo. 1 hour down, and I can't believe it. And we'll be back for the second hour, folks. Don't go anywhere. Jojo Seebacker is our immensely special guest tonight, and I'm loving this show so far. I hope all of you are as well. We'll be back on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is the Kev Baker Show on TFRlive.com. Hour 2 to come. Don't go anywhere, folks.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And that's right, Jimmy Jeans, he loves all of you out there. I'm Kev Baker. This is the Kev Baker Show. And this show, I was saying to the chat room, I want to tell the wider audience, it might sound like myself and Jimmy, we're kind of dragging the special guest, Jojo Seebacker, all over the place tonight. And that's because there's such an energy here. Even I can pick up on it. And I typically am not empathic. I never really pick up on energies. Jimmy does. Jojo does. And there's definitely something in the air tonight, Jimmy Jeans. I'm loving this, man. We could probably speak for about 10 hours with Jojo. But I'm going to
You need to give yourself more credit. You are empathic. You're highly empathic. You're an extremely compassionate, honorable man who's so humble and just so caring about the guests. So that's empathy. That's a form of intuition. So give yourself some credit, bro.
Oh, see, Jimmy, you know what I'm like, Jimmy. I always put myself down, but that's because it might be my name on the door, Jimmy, but it's all about the guest. And I'm going to let you, take us into the second half of the show here. Like I say, usually first-time guests, I kind of leave the co-host in the background, deal with questions from the chat room, stuff like that. But there's something different going on tonight, Jimmy, isn't there?
Yeah, I would say so. I think there's a big swirling pool of energy that's emanating from tfrlive.com/chat. So if you go over to the chat room, you guys can interact. If you have any questions for JoJo, please post them in the chat because I will be monitoring the chat and listening. But I just wanted to add one thing before we get back to JoJo, and that is that, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the fact that she is here right now, shining bright on the true frequency, well, that's living testament that it's possible to get through whatever you're going through, because she went through some dark times and hard times. And she, no matter what happened, she just didn't give up and she kept going. Even if you just you can barely move today, but you got to just move a little bit, just move a little bit, keep moving to where you got to get to. Right, JoJo?
Do not do what I did this past year, folks. Don't do it. It was heavy duty and it will break you. But let me tell you, Jimmy and Kev, when I broke, I broke and I put my pain out there on Facebook and asked for help. I asked for love. I asked for, support. I needed help. And that's what we need to do. And I'm covered in goosebumps saying that, folks. So if you can't move, I need you to get on Facebook and ask for help. Ask for help. Be there and you will be flooded with love, because the most beautiful people came to my rescue and broke the most demonic evil that I was dealing with this year in Healing Through the Darkness. I've written many, many articles on it. I've done several radio shows, one posted up on YouTube on the Snail Show, and it'll explain the healing through the darkness. I did not have my will through that. My will wavered. My will wavered, guys, but I had threads left where I reached out. I finally reached out, and thank God I did.
Can be the hardest thing to do, JoJo. I've found that in the past as well. And we tend, as humans, I feel anyway, to bottle things up. We think we can deal with things. And then, even the act of sharing without even the advice coming back in return, that in itself can be a release valve. And like you say, anyone out there, please, just whether it's with JoJo, whether it's with friends or family, you have to talk to people. Before we bring JoJo back, we've got another J on the show. We've got Jimmy, we've got JoJo, and now we've got Johnny Whistles, of course, my long-time co-host and good friend. He has joined us for hour number 2. Johnny, this is probably the highlight, not just of this week, but this month tonight, man. You've joined us for a really, really good second hour here, man. How you doing, Johnny?
Doing fine, Kev. Thanks very much. Yeah, I was listening to JoJo, and welcome to TFR, JoJo. I've been listening to you, and your stories are absolutely fantastic. And as you say, the love is out there, actually, because I was in a quite a dark place a while ago, and it's one of them things where you don't want to ask for help because you get kind of embarrassed that you don't want that help. But that help is out there, because we, especially here at TFR, we have some of the most amazing listeners who have helped so many people over the years, myself included. And it is out there, as you say, JoJo. It is fantastic. And take the help when you can get it. Don't bottle it up. Take that help. It's available and it's there for you.
Well, anybody that followed my social media from MySpace to Facebook knows that I would put my stories out there, what I was struggling through and how I would find triumph or solutions. And that's how solutions came about, SOUL solutions. And, I needed to be real. If I was going to be a teacher and a counselor, I didn't want to be fake. I wanted to show people, look, I'm dealing with this, I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect or things don't happen to me. This is what's happening. I just didn't know how to ask for help because I've always been doing this on my own, figuring it out on my own, teaching defense and And I just thought I could handle this by myself. And boy, I was wrong. That was one big, big healing in me. I learned that I needed to ask for help, that I didn't have to do it by myself anymore. And I got help. I got so much flood. And not only that, guys, like, this is what I want to teach people. I don't draw narcissistic, abusive friends to me. I haven't in over, a year or more now. I have the most beautiful frequencies matching me. I'm ending karmic stuff. I'm breaking cycles. And I want to show people that their frequencies can change too. So their dreams and desires of healthy friendships and healthy lovers and, healthy experiences can happen, and how you can flow through the struggle. That the struggles aren't so struggling.
Absolutely. And, this the narcissistic trait that we hear a lot of shows in the alternative media talking about. I mean, you were sharing some kind of statistics with me before the show, Jojo, and it's a lot more widespread than we might think, right? This kind of narcissistic mindset.
Very alarming, actually, because I want to get my certification in this. And narcissist is an ugly word, right? Nobody ever wants to be called that or told that or even understand what it is, right? Many men and women don't even realize they're in a narcissistic, abusive personality disorder or the syndrome of the abuse. So, it's an ugly word. And I lost the question. I'm so sorry.
It's actually, I was saying it's more widespread than we kind of think, because you were kind of sharing with me, the statistics, the percentages that you'd come across of it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes.
No, that's okay.
I want to pursue my certification in this eventually, when I'm all settled with the house and everything. So I started looking up statistics of, this syndrome, which is the victimization, and the disorder, which is the abuser or the perpetrator. And it's a very fine line in between as well. So I started really investigating this and found out 1 out of 10 people in the world, folks, 1 out of 10 people. So every 10 people you see on the street or in the supermarket, 1 out of those 10 are narcissists. And honestly, I can't remember if it's 30% of those narcissists in the world are sociopaths. These are alarming rates. 85% of victims try to commit suicide of this type of relationship, whether it's family, friend, husband, wife, lover, whatever. 85% try to commit suicide. Almost the same statistic wish. Now the women wish they were either beaten or raped instead of this emotionally abusive relationship. And I've been one of those women wishing I was beaten or raped instead of surviving this 20 years, and tried to commit suicide over this 20-year period.
Jojo, what do you think is the cause for 1 in 10 people turning out narcissistic? I mean, I would like to believe we're not born that way. I hope we're all born, almost like a clean slate. Is it life? Is it the world we're in?
We are born beautiful babies with pure divinity in us. It could be our upbringing. It could be outside abuse, could be an outside sexual abuse from a daycare, could be the dynamics of the family. It could be society itself with the tech age. Nobody's saying hello in the grocery stores. Nobody's making conversations on the street. You barely make eye contact anymore, right? Well, I'm not that kind of person. These are things we can look for in narcissists today. It's highly alarming because it's desocialization from many different root causes. And that's probably why we're all over the place tonight with these subjects, because this is trauma-based mind control, really, when you get down to it. And we want to figure out through these assessment sessions that I do, what side of the coin you're on, or where you fit into this and how you fit in. And often these assessment sessions they give you an awake regression. They put puzzle pieces together. And, these statistics are so alarming today because of the elite running these constructs on us and the desocialization problem. So we, as the beautiful energy that we're feeling tonight, we can collectively heal this infection. We can be like Rex Bear says on the Leak Project, be the change you want to see in the world. Like Mandela says, we can really help fix these issues once we become emotionally mature and really start working from our heart center, that the soul goes through this heart center. Your will is such a divine thing, this beautiful thing. We got to bring the empathy and the compassion in, especially into this cold world.
That's why I want to see TFR really exploding even bigger than it is, Jimmy, because I think, we do have the ability to transmit that frequency, to bring people together and to really make the change that, like Jojo says there and so many other people say, be the change that we want to see.
Right. And digging into your own inner being, you got to be really brave to admit, hey, I'm screwed up here. I do this ugly. I'm wrong at that. These are things I got to fix in myself, man. I got to fix it in myself so I'm a better human. And I can be better in the collective, for the collective, and hold space for the collective. Like, we're all over the world. We're spread out, holding the frequencies down for the world, listeners. We got to bring it all together now and really shine our soul's light when we're out face to face in the community, when we're over the phone, by digging in ourselves and learning the self-healing. You got to really look at some ugly things in yourself. Maybe you got anger problems. Maybe you got defensive issues. Maybe you got to always be right, or you don't even realize you have a narcissistic trait in you, or a codependency trait in you, or, a megalomaniac trait in you. I see it everywhere. I've been up and down that spectrum. It's something that every human being has, not every human being, because we've got clones and we're going to go off subject.
This is another show. You mentioned clones and transhumanism. That's another show in the future, Jojo. So I'm definitely kind of thinking into the future here. I see more shows to come. But Jimmy, I know you've got something to throw into the mix here, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna add in that there's an author by the name of Carolyn Myss. That's MYSS. And she's done quite an extensive work on something called archetypes. And I highly recommend people superimpose Carolyn Myss's work over another author's work called The Art of Seduction by Robert. By Robert Greene. You know the book? Mm-hmm. So he's got quite a different take on the archetypes, but he does go quite extensively into how to manipulate each and every one of these types of people that can be manipulated by a certain kind of archetype. And so the book is sort of putting forward the methods of a person adopting whatever seductive character would be able to manipulate the other person. And so if you could take a look at that work and then also get into Carolyn Myss, I think it ties exactly into what JoJo can help you unwind from some of this trauma-based mind control that happens every day, that we don't realize the trauma that we actually go through, like she was saying earlier. We're watching TV, we're seeing beatings, we're seeing all this, we're seeing, we're not seeing the harmony. And that's exactly what she is also saying, is we need to harmonize,
right,
and resonate a frequency that's higher than the one we're being sucked into. We're being entrained by wireless technology to vibrate at an unnatural frequency that keeps us off balance and easily manipulated.
But guess what, Jimmy? Jeans, guess what? These 5 foundations, they're simple. you can sing tones. You can buzz and sing tones or chants and resonate your soul's code frequencies, your frequencies. You can resonate that crap. I almost swore. You can resonate that out. You have to be really disciplined. If you are an empath and have bad luck happen a lot or bad experiences happen a lot, and like I'm an expert on bad luck and bad experience, guys.
I live bad luck, Jojo. Trust me, bad luck is my best friend.
I've been down so long, it's looking like up to me. How's that?
But the bad luck, see, it's not my luck anymore. There may be really bad things happening around me, but it doesn't affect my energy field. It doesn't affect my prosperity. It doesn't affect my peace. I had to have it rocked so many times to find these foundations and these 4 components that I've recently added. They're really 2 components, but they're 4 if you really want to break it down. So, you can beat this warfare, guys, whether it's chemtrail warfare, ELFs, EMFs, ELPs, hum towers, GMOs, narcissists, whatever, transhumans. You can enhance and develop your supernatural abilities. You can still experience situations that are not pleasant happening in your life, but you can make the destruction of that work as a creation for you. And like I'm going through a home sale right now, and my ex-husband, or I don't know what to call him because we're really still married and as common law, but the septic system failed, the buyers dropped out of the contract, and he's like a freaking mess over it, and I'm just flowing through the Tao, and it doesn't affect me. It's not hurting my prosperity. It's not hurting my peace. I'm still flourishing. I've got beauty. I laugh. I'm not stressed. So, yeah, they're not pleasant experiences, but this is what I want to teach folks. And sometimes you're going to fall down, right? Sometimes you're going to fall down and be the human and maybe cry or worry. But you know what? Those are lies. Worry and fear is a lie. It's a lie. Did I lose you guys?
I was muted up there. I thought I was going to get through a full night without being muted up, Jojo. I really did. I was sitting there listening to you, and these 5 foundations, I'm quite keen to get into these. So you mentioned the kind of chanting there. Yeah. I mean, what are the 5 foundations?
The 5 foundations are all about energy alchemy of energy. And the first is called Peptide Pep Talk. It's about working with your brain, the way your brain works, thought patterns, thought chatter, thought forms, how you think. Do you think positive or negative? I can tell you the human brain thinks up to 200,000 thoughts a day, and most of those thoughts are negative, and you would never let somebody say those things to you that you say to yourself. So the first is called Peptide Pep Talk. It literally changes the peptides that feed your trillions of cells in your body. It changes your physiology, guys. The second one is called Opposing Frequencies. These are working with exactly that. Positive and negative frequencies, tones, pitches, sounds you make out of your mouth. Back in ancient times, they telepathically communicated and healed with tones, frequencies. So these are opposing frequencies. So, like a targeted individual would get a prescription to listen to certain really heavy duty tones that might sound horrible, but it'll stop the pitch tones in their ears or the rashes and bloody noses. The opposing frequencies can break up chemtrails out of a plane. So that's the second one. The third is energy work. It's this 10-step energy cleaning system that you can work all together or use any one of those 10 steps. The fourth is called sacred water. And it's using water the proper way. The The earth is made of 70 some odd percent water. Your body has the identical amount of water in it that the earth does. It's based on Dr. Emoto's work before I even knew Dr. Emoto. But again, taken further. And I have tests, and you can go on my Facebook and even look at some of the sacred water tests I've done with the physiology change of your body. So it's using water in certain ways and talking to the water in certain ways, whether you're spraying it, drinking it, bathing in it, even washing your dishes. And
we are mainly made up of water as well, right?
Yes, the same amount as Mother Earth has. Identical. No coincidence, guys. But we have the identical amount of water that the earth has in our bodies. So water is programmable. I take it further into a structured zone, an easy zone, exclusion zone. And my stuff is all physiological or scientifically proven. And, people all over the world speak about some of this stuff, like Bruce Lipton and Eric Pearl. And I don't know, some of these people that my clients tell me I sound like. I don't know their work very well, but very similar to like Emoto. I knew Dr. Emoto's work, but, so some of these foundations I've created are, they're old. They're from MySpace, but I've just tweaked them. And my fifth one is really important, guys, because it's called Dreamtime Training. We sleep a vast amount of our lives away. And during dream time, these are when abductions occur or nightmares, demonic dreams, shadow people, frozen lucid dreams, you are asleep so much that most people don't have control in their dream time or their nightmares or their abductions. So I want to teach people how to bring their awakened consciousness into the dream time state so they can say no and manipulate the dream and not be abducted or break the demon holding them, freezing them down in sleep paralysis. So those are my 5 foundations that I teach. And the components that I've added to it are working with the Tao and staying in the now. So I know they sound kind of contradictory, but they do the same thing. And then the other 2 components that I've added to it is beating a heartbeat like a rhythm and adding in what I call the alls of the everything. So you're beating your heartbeat into the alls of the everything, every living thing on the planet, every grain of sand, every blade of grass, every creature, every human, every bit of air, every atom, all in the cosmos. So it's put it on steroids, and it's not a quick fix by any means, because you are doing inner work, folks. And inner work takes bravery and honesty with yourself.
Sometimes the hardest place to look, I find, Jojo, is inwards as opposed to outwards.
Yeah, I want to teach inner standing all the way. And I mean, if you're not a serious person, you don't bother to come, ask for classes, because I am loving and uplifting and I will support you. But if you are not serious and not going to do the work, then I have to drop you as a client and you're not going to be happy. But it's just so important for people to know that you don't have to have bad luck. Maybe the bad luck's happening around you, but it doesn't have to affect your energy field, your prosperity, your own career, your life experiences, your friendships. You can actually change you're an energy alchemist. You're changing the energy. You're cleaning the energy and magnetics, and you're changing the energy and magnetics. It's all based on tachyon energy. I just spoke about that. We're tachyon-based beings, and the universe is made of tachyon energy.
Well, we are almost on the break, and we're going to come back on the other side. I'll be asking Jojo about artificial intelligence. Jimmy will have points to bring up. I'm sure Johnny Whistles is sitting. He's got a lot to talk about as well. The show was 3 or 4 hours long. I'm only joking, folks, because I know we'll be writing to Chris Geo to say, come on, give Kev more time. But perhaps, you might find me rolling into Joe's. Who knows? We'll be back on the other side with Jojo Seebacker. What an amazing show to round off the KBS week. And we'll be back after these short messages.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Jojo Seebacker, our very, very special guest tonight, and I hope you've all enjoyed this show. And luckily for all of us, Jojo will be coming back on in the near future. We'll be drilling down more specifically into specific topics. And tonight, for the final segment, we're going to get into AI, morgellons, clones, all this kind of stuff. But before we get there, Jojo, I know that you're a big, big, big fan of TFR. There's a lot of shows, a lot of people you would love to give a shout out to. So over to you, sister.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Frankie, Fearless Frank, Nikki Colombo, Chris and Sherry, and Rock Castaldo. You, of course. You know, tons of you guys on here. Best hosts, best subjects and topics, off the lame stream media, as Nikki would say. And just really good people, great listeners, just great support here. Thank you so much for this honor.
Oh, this has been brilliant. And Jimmy, before we go back into this, I know you want to jump in quickly, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is these conversations that we're having here today. This is one of the most brilliant, cogent conversations I've heard in a long time. And I just want to say, these are the kind of conversations that go on behind closed doors in think tanks, ladies and gentlemen. What we're talking about tonight is the real science. It's the psychoscience that goes on. And if you're made aware of the situation, JoJo seems to have a program that might help. And I have to say, Kev, wow, what a fantastic show tonight. And let me just, I'm going to go back here in the background because I am simply enchanted by this conversation.
I told you, you know, when I get that funny feeling it's going to be really good, we need to kind of multiply that by 10, because usually I'm picking up on something ahead of time. And man, oh man, was I right about this one. And Jojo Seebacker, everyone. If people want to contact you, Jojo, because I'm sure people listening tonight will have resonated with something you're saying out of the millions of topics we're covering here. I mean, where do they get a hold of you, and where can they talk to you personally without the thousands of people around the world listening in?
The best place right now, guys, is Facebook.com/Jojo, Jojo Seebacher, Seebacher. My website was sabotaged, and that's a long discussion, but it will be back eventually. I haven't used it since 2008. Just contact me, Facebook, private messenger. Right now, I'm only doing holiday psychic soul readings. I'm back to my roots for a little while, going through this move. When I get settled in my new place, I will start taking assessment sessions and teaching again. But right now, all I'm doing are psychic soul readings and holiday special, hopping in right now. You can get a soul reading, oracle reading, and it's about 2 hours long.
I need to kind of get one of these kind of private soul readings. I want to find out more about myself, that's for sure. And before we get back into it, let me just take a quick moment to say happy birthday to my little brother. He is 25 today. Kenneth, I love you to bits, man. My only regret is that we're 100 miles apart, but I am so, so proud of you, bro. And I hope you've had a brilliant day. Hope you have a brilliant Christmas coming up, and I'll hope to see you very, very soon. So lots of love to my little brother, Kenny, from all of the TFR audience tonight, and I'm sure all of them will be sending love your way as well. So Jojo, one of the topics that I tend to cover a heck of a lot on here, and some of the listeners would probably say, you cover it too much, Kev, but I don't think you can talk too much about AI, artificial intelligence. Now, we often kind of put the question out there, what is AI? What really are we dealing with? And when it comes to the robots, just what exactly is going to dwell inside these machines? And I know that you look at AI. What's your take on artificial intelligence, Jojo?
I look at it how it affects the human being. I know there's clones out there, transhuman, Borgs, the cyborg, the augmented person, but I look at it in the targeted individual mostly is where I see a lot of AI interference. Anything from the morgellon fibers, the chemtrails with the nanotechnology, the GMO foods you ingest, these are how it affects the human. So AI is just not in those clones and Borgs and transhumans. I'm talking that it's in the human being now, the AI. All uploaded into a singularity probably at this point with our brains. But we look for things in the human AI psychotronic level. And this is like where the assessment sessions come in. Do you have a smart meter? How much chems are being sprayed in your area? How many towers are near you? Where's your closest hum tower? And then we get into things like, do you have dental issues, teeth breaking, fillings falling out, trouble, with dental work that won't stick, pitch tones in the ears? Do you hear voices? Do you have racing thoughts, floaters in your eyes, thoughts not of your own, even right down to being overly sexually tintillated, where you just want to masturbate all the time, nosebleeds, burning skin, burn marks on the skin, heart palpitations, blurred vision, burning feet, shocks, pulses, currents. I mean, it just goes on and on how it affects the human. And it's different than, maybe not far off from a transhuman, but it's quite different in the human being, and they get very, very ill. Some of these people get so depressed and they don't know their own thoughts. They might be suicide programmed. This is just this again. It ties into brain mapping and mind control with this artificial intelligence, and it hits targeted individuals the worst.
Now, you also mentioned, and this is something we spoke about on the show, and I do think it's kind of related to AI, and this is the whole morgellons kind of epidemic, the unspoken epidemic that's going on right now. What's your take on morgellons?
I'll tell you, I think it's been around a whole lot longer than what we've been told. It's found in your basic junk food, McDonald's. I think, what's his name? The Health Ranger, did some forensic testing on fast food places and found morgellon fibers in chicken nuggets, and other people have done it with burgers and vegetables, and even a blanket you go buy at the store. We have the Walmarts in here. If you turn Walmart around, it's martial law. So I had an experience buying a queen size fluffy blanket for a really great price. And, all of these fibers were floating around in the air, and they were sticking under my fingernail, and they would literally try to get back into my finger. I realized these were living things. I mean, I got rid of the darn blanket, but, I collected all these morgellon fibers, and people, that go through these assessments, they might have to take these really intense baths, and they're harsh, and they peel your skin. Your skin is like the battery for this stuff. They might have to ingest stuff like boron and bentonite clay, and it's just not a pleasant detox. But you want your life and your body to feel better, you got to go through some of this heavy duty detox. I mean, you get hypersensitivity emotionally, you get super depressed. This is an epidemic, guys, this morgellon. It has been around since, I believe, the Vietnam War that we could document, but I believe it's much further back than that.
See, I'm the same as you, Jojo. I suspect, and I say suspect because I've got nothing kind of tangible to really back it up, but I think it's something that's been around a lot longer than what we really appreciate. And Johnny Whistles, I'm going to bring you in right now. You've been very quiet, but I know morgellons, chemtrails, this kind of thing. This is the kind of stuff we've spoke about on the show before. And what do you make of the whole morgellons thing, John? I mean, that's kind of scary stuff, and so many people rubbish it.
Well, most doctors rubbish it, Kevin. Why? It really baffles me, because I mean, you're saying that going back to Vietnam, I'm sure they were spraying the skies back in Vietnam because they didn't have to spray their own soldiers when they were over there. But I always thought that morgellons, that would have been from the chemtrails. I always thought that there must be some correlation there because, I mean, when they tested these fibers, the FBI tested them, and every single fiber that they had, well, it matched nothing. Absolutely nothing matched on this earth.
It's almost like you could say it's almost alien, Johnny, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe forming in the air or something somewhere, but it shouldn't actually be here, and why it's on people's skins and why it's actually attaching itself to people's skins. It's baffling, Kev, because it should actually be looked at, but nobody's doing nothing about it. That's the worst thing about it.
Absolutely. And before we go back to Jojo, I mean, Jimmy, you want to talk about the morgellons as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking closely at a couple of researching people that I know study on the rejection of these micro fiber optic networks, and that, you know, some people are putting forward that these are activated by frequencies, that they could activate these micro fiber optic networks, and what they are, they're ad hoc networks, similar to what you would see as you add a node. It increases the footprint of the network and extends the range, similar to what you have with your smart meter. So, for example, if it was, let's say, a 900, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying this is the frequency, and I'm only speculating about this system. I'm not saying this is what's going on, but for example, your smart meter is transmitting at 900 megahertz on the side of your house. I mean, if it was transmitting at that, and let's say it activated these microscopic data networks that are operating on a machine language that's used for sensor technology, similar to what they would real small devices are used to detect moisture, under bridges and dams, that kind of thing. So same language is used with these micro optic networks. And there's been some suggestion that certain blood types actually reject the material, and it comes out of the skin. And it's been said that these Rh negative blood types reject this, specifically women from the Vietnam era all the way through now. Specifically, women.
I would like to actually probably add something like that to one of the questions on my questionnaire. You know, the age group of people and the blood type as well. I mean, I do ask blood types if the people are willing to give it to me, so we can determine that. But you're right on with how this stuff is operating. And I've been attacked by those fibers. I had about a 30 to 60 millimeter kind of sphere coming out of my back over the summertime. That it just, I guess my body was rejecting this. And there are videos that you could even look on YouTube about these fibers. They will actually grow out of your eyebrows, your hairline, the smaller hairs of your hairline. And if you take boric acid, I believe, the boric acid powder, and pour it on it, you'll see your eyebrow hair move. It's really fascinating. And then you pull it apart and you'll see the morgellon string inside of there. Is it alien? Is this nanotechnology alien? I could ask the same question about the fungi kingdom. You know, it's not a plant, it's not a mineral, it's not an animal, it's not an amphibian or a bird. It's in its own kingdom, this fungi. It's not, is that alien? It's so different than nanotech, of course, but I think there's something to fungi too. If you're looking, I haven't quite stretched that topic yet, guys, but Believe me, I believe there's something to fungi that none of us really are aware of yet.
When you look at fungi, I mean, that is a topic that you could probably do many shows on. I listen to Paul Stamets. He talks about mushrooms, fungi, stuff like that. And the fact that it shows intelligence in itself, maybe related in some way, the same family as morgellons. But you're mentioning there this questionnaire you've got, Jojo, about the AI, stuff like that. Tell us more about that if you would like to share that.
When somebody comes to me and they want to maybe have like broken memories, or they're not quite sure what's happened to them, but they know something's happened, I ask them there's like about 90 some odd questions, and they're all in different categories. Everything from satanic ritual abuse to sexual abuse, monarch programming, super soldier programs, secret space program, time travel, targeted individuals, AI. It's so diversified what I ask, and it puts storylines together for people. I look for patterns of their age and their year, and then I look for statistics with who comes to me for that year, and I start to draw statistics from, 3 people are saying identical things. I start listening. If 10 people say identical things, and I really start making statistics. So, this isn't coincidence stuff, guys. And why the medical industry doesn't take it seriously, Johnny Whistle? Look over in America, they don't even take Lyme disease serious. And I was fighting for an antibiotic PICC line to my heart for over 12 years that the insurance company wouldn't approve because I was more expensive sick than I was cured. They don't even recognize it. And it's recognized in pets more than it is in human beings. So the pharmaceutical and the medical industry are not going to recognize these things. And this is where we, the people, have to really speak up. And it takes bravery to do that. It might put a target on your back to call your representative of your country or state or, segment. I don't know what they're all called all over the world. In my place in the US, they're called states and counties and local government. And, if you make phone calls, we have to speak now, folks. We can't just speak it on Facebook or over the radio. We have to really make changes in person, whether that's in your neighborhood. I was really big on, trying to open up the conversation about missing children. The stats on missing children alone are alarming. And, it's very hard to do this by yourself. We need groups to do this now.
Yeah, you can't do it as yourself, as you say. And the thing about, I always wondered why. I mean, I know that the job, a doctor's job, is really important to him, but you would think that if all the doctors stood up to the terrible treatment that patients get these days, you think maybe something would be done about it, but they don't. They let it go on, and that's quite scary that they allow that to go on, because they know that people are not being treated right. Pain isn't being... do you know what I mean? There's nothing taking people's pain away. There's people suffering out there that shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? And doctors, to me, doctors actually should be doing a lot more about it.
Over in America here, a doctor goes through, I think, 7 hours of nutritional training, and that's it. And we know food can heal. We know certain foods can heal certain people, certain body types, depending on what, you're dealing with. Food can heal. We know ketosis diets can heal cancer and keep tumors away. There's so many healing cures available. And unfortunately, a lot of herbs have been outlawed in America that you have to, go overseas to get well, or to get the herb, to get well. A plant, medicinal herb, maybe an Amazon plant, even illegal. Essiac, I know, is a cure for cancer made of several herbal components, and they make one or two of the herbals illegal in the United States. So you could only buy it, I think, over in London, maybe, or in England. What I would like to believe and know as a holder of high frequencies, of truth frequencies, is the people that we bring the truth to and are awakened. They teach their children, and those children grow up and say, hey, you know what, things need to change. People are bucking some of the university things and saying, why aren't you teaching, the Fibonacci and the sacred geometry and math? And people are asking questions about vaccinations, and they are questioning why doctors aren't doing their job and people are staying sick. So let's believe and know, guys, that the generations be after us are going to be the major changers.
I'm glad you went down this road, because I don't say it often, and it's not to be defeatist or pessimistic, but it's almost as if the generations before us, and even to a certain extent our generation, despite the fact we're all here and we're looking into this stuff, it's almost like we fell asleep at the wheel. And I hope all of the kind of radio that we're laying down, all of the information that all of us are kind of putting out there right now, more so geared towards steering the next generation. I mean, I've got a 16-year-old son, and I would like to think that his generation can learn from maybe not our mistakes, but the fact that we've been duped on so much. And it's about them and their children and the children after them, because, we might not be here to see the change that we're really putting into effect right now, but it's about them for me, Jojo. That's what's really important to me.
Kev, that's so true. We have to teach our children and their children and their children how to ask questions now. We need to have them ask questions and say, why? Why is it this way? This is not the right way. And we need to have we're in between the pioneer stage, I think. We're still in the awakening stage and the pioneering stage and trying to swim through truth here, but we need to teach the children how to ask questions and in intelligent ways be that change that we've initiated in them, to ask those questions.
Now, we've got 5 minutes left. On you go, Jimmy. Oh, Johnny, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the good thing is we weren't prepared for what is going on just now. Mm-hmm. But we are actually going to prepare our children to what is coming up. So at least they've got a start.
Very well said, Whistles. Exactly. And, on that note, I want you, Jojo, to have the floor for the last 4 minutes here. If there was anything you could say, and you can choose anything at all, I mean, what would you like to leave the listeners with tonight?
Well, I think it's been a splendid show, and I'm glad we talked about all these different topics, right? We hit a lot of different topics that are really real, and how to look at it in a way of solutions. So we need to concentrate on the solutions, even though we're going down these rabbit holes, right? The rabbit hole gets real deep and dark, guys. We have to remember what our mission really truly is, and it's the truth frequency. How do we change it? What we know now, how do we start making these changes happen? What are these solutions? And know, folks, that there are solutions. There is hope. There is brightness. There is a beautiful life. Or even if you want to call it a matrix, you can still have this beautiful, extraordinary life. But we need to really concentrate on the solutions now. Maybe not just the heavy talk. We need to really be the change now. Initiate it.
Absolutely. Very well said. And Jojo, I can't thank you enough for tonight. And we've covered a plethora of topics. We really, really have. Tori from the chat room, fantastic show. And I think, probably a lot of people, thousands of people probably echo that thought tonight. And I want to thank you personally in front of all the public here for coming onto the show and being so open, so honest, and sharing your knowledge with everyone tonight, because I think there's been something for everyone. And yeah, we've covered all these topics, but like I say, we're going to hook back up in the future and we'll be able to drill down more specifically into them and give even more specific solutions to people. So, Jojo, thank you for everything you're doing on here on TFR, and even more so for people that you're working with privately that we might not see in the public eye. I just want to thank you for everything.
The honor has been mine implicitly, meeting you three gentlemen tonight, making friends with you all, and just having the honor of being on the Kev Baker show is just a privilege to me. Truth Frequency is, my station. I love it. And I just love you all. I just want you all to know, all your listeners, that I just have big love for you all, and hold hope. If you can't hold it yourself, I'll hold it for you.
Absolutely. And we love you too, Jojo. It's been absolutely fantastic. Jimmy, you enjoyed tonight?
Fantastic. The chat is just going nuts. People are standing on the stools next to the bar. People are swinging from the chandeliers. I'm telling you right now, it's been a fantastic show.
Well, you'll be able to catch Jimmy Jeans with Joe Joseph after the break. I might jump on there at some point. Johnny Whistles, you enjoyed this second hour, my good friend.
It's been fantastic, Kev. Absolutely amazing.
It really has. You see, this is what happens when I go with my gut. And for anyone out there, when you get a gut feeling, go with it. Forget what the voice in your head says. Just go with it. Joe Joseph coming up with the Freedom Link, and wherever you are, make it T, F, and R.
And didn't touch that dial.